come live now to Vincent Spadea. Delighted to have you with us live now. I'm David Mercer, alongside me Fru McMillan. The third of the quarterfinals coming up at 7:30 tonight our time. That's, what is it, 12:30 in the UK in the morning and 1:30 in the morning in Central European.
We now draw your attention to Stadium Court. Representing Rado,
we will have
conducting today's coin toss is its president,
the last of the quarterfinals, Michael Chang and Goran Ivanisevic. So a celebrity spinner of the coin alongside Paulo Pereira. Now I have to tell you that it's much, much hotter and more humid. 80% humidity today. 83, 84 Fahrenheit. Just in the background there with his arms folded, you can just pick out Alan Mills. I'm sure many of you back home will recognise the Wimbledon referee. You'll never get away with wearing a polo shirt at the All England Club. Be sacked instantly.
Yes, the gentleman spinning the coin was actually president of one of the companies sponsoring here, and we'll pass the sign any minute. No, we're not going. We're going the other way. President of one of the watch companies.
Does that entitle you to a free watch, giving him a plug?
No, I didn't mention the company.
All right, let's talk about this young man who has been certainly impressing a lot of people. I can confess I'm not impressed by the tournament organisers' decision to play pop music during the warm-up. Don't need that, but there we are. I'm old-fashioned. Spadea, born in Chicago, now living just up the road, isn't it? Boca Raton in Florida.
Yes, very fashionable.
And he's 21 years of age. He's ranked 90 in the world. He has been as high as 54.
And now, ladies and gentlemen,
but he won the Orange Bowl, the unofficial World Junior Championships in 1992, and was ranked 4th in the world in juniors that year. He reached a couple of semi-finals last year, Auckland and Bermuda. This year, quarter-finalist in San Jose.
He also reached the 4th round in the US Open in 1995.
We're going to concentrate
unseated at the Lipton. He beat Thomas Enquist
on Pete Sampras for a moment. Of course, the man who can go back to #1 in the world, but only now if he wins the title.
Spadea.
Spadea. It's funny, I, like many other people, I think, from this side of the pond, used to call Spadea. And then last year at the US Open, I actually commentated on his match against Yevgeny Kavelnikov, which he won for an American network I had the pleasure of working for at the Open, and was very quickly corrected and told it's Spadea.
Yes, I think that's how it's pronounced in America. I think Spadea is probably more correct and more as it would be called in Italy, but it's been Americanized.
A bit like Robbie Weiss with a W, who of course we would undoubtedly call Robbie Weiss. These two are meeting for the third time. Sampras, you won't be surprised to know, has won both of them. And they first met in Atlanta on American clay back in 1993, 6-3, 6-4. But their last meeting was on hard, like the courts here. It was in Indianapolis last summer. And although Sampras won in straight sets, it certainly wasn't easy.
He also won the
7-5, 6-4.
winning his Grand Slam title in 1990.
It's been funny. We've been talking through. We were talking last night, weren't we, about Andre Agassi not being in prime form. And with the notable exception of his performance against Agassi in the final in San Jose, I think it would also be fair to say that Sampras really hasn't been at his very best so far this year.
No, I think that's very true. He's been stuttering a bit. He hasn't lost that many matches, but still, as you say, the form hasn't exactly been pinpoint and hasn't put the fear of death, I don't think, into many an opponent. Spadea, incidentally, will know even more about Sampras than one might assume, because he was co-opted to the American Davis Cup team for practice in the final against the Russians in Moscow, and would have been used as a good punch bag by all concerned.
Sampras' record for the year, 18-2, with the 2 tournament wins, and here at the Lipton, 2 wins as well, 93 and 94. He's playing here for the 8th time. Spadea, as you would have seen, for the 4th. But when I was in Indian Wales, Fru, sadly you weren't with me there, but some of the American journalists were saying, well, where's our next generation of youngsters coming through? And one or two of us were saying, well, hang on, there's a young fellow called Spadea who looks pretty good to us, and what are you panicking for anyway? You've got 4 guys right up there at the top of the rankings.
Well, they did this before, didn't they? They had a great panic when Connors was coming to the end of his career. Of course, he never did come to the end of his career. He seemed to last forever. And they had a real soul-searching going on in the States then, but suddenly they had all kinds of players, and even now they've got 13 players in the top 100. And incidentally, Spadea here is the 13th of those American, and the last one, therefore, in the top 100. He is their the highest ranked of their young players, and I suppose in some ways one can understand them, but they tend to panic just a little bit too much. I'm sure somebody else will come to the fore.
We'll take a short break and be back for the start of the match.
Back to the Lipton Championships live with Expo 2000.
Spadea won the toss.
Welcome back.
Chose to receive it.
Live coverage of the third of the quarterfinals of the men's singles. There's Paulo Pereira from Sao Paulo, Brazil. Incidentally, the first of the women's semi-finals has just taken place before this match here on the stadium court, and Steffi Graf has beaten Lindsay Davenport 6-4, 6-4, so rather easier than their meeting at the same stage in Indian Wells, where Steffi got home 6-4 in the final set after 2 hours and 42 minutes. Now, I wonder if we can just have a little look at the draw as it stands in the men's event. The other women's semi, incidentally, Chanda Rubin against Karina Habsudova, will take place after Ivanisevic and Chang in the wee small hours of the morning your time. So here we are. This is the lineup in the quarterfinals. So we know that Birch is through to play Agassi, and the winner of this plays Chang or Ivanisevic. And incidentally, we will have that match for you at 1 p.m. UK time tomorrow afternoon. That's 2 p.m. Central European time, of course. So we thought it would be easier for you to watch it than stay up half the night. And if you can't watch it because you're in work, remember to set the video before you go to bed tonight. 1 o'clock UK time, 2 o'clock Central European time, 2 p.m.
Spadea won the spin of the coin and is elected to receive. Sampras serving at 59% of his first serves in prior to this tournament. I worked out he's been
First set,
hitting about 4.4 aces per set all year long.
Best 3 sets, all 3 tie breaks. Early notice of one of the strengths of Spadea, the double-handed backhand.
15.
Yes, he takes a pretty early ball, Spadea, and it's one of the things that Sampras respects about his game.
15-all.
Of course, the other very early returners of the ball are Agassi. Corder takes a very early ball. It cuts out the angle of the big man's serve.
Oh, well reached. Spadea again serving notice that he can go
15.
both down the line and cross-court. This was a great get from Sampras.
But why Spadea wasn't there? He should have known that he'd hit a fairly good shot, and Sampras is not going to be able to put the ball away down there. Edberg might, but Sampras can't.
Well,
He's not looking too self-conscious at the moment, or at least he's not playing very self-consciously.
Did I not hear a bleep or something go off then? Or am I going totally gaga?
There was some bleep.
Yeah, I thought it might have been the old trembler device on the umpire's chair. Obviously not.
Game Sampras.
Yes, it may have been the squealing of his sneakers.
Yeah, that's possible. Anyway, Sampras holds serve. First game of the match.
Kremliovskaya, vodka made with the finest grains and the purest spring water. It's good character-building stuff.
Great television pictures.
Dowie.
But where do you read about European sport? The European is the only English-language weekly newspaper circulating throughout Europe. Every issue has 3 broadsheet pages devoted to sport. European sport, motor racing, football, rugby, tennis, athletics. It's all in the European. In-depth and written by respected journalists from across the continent. The European. Get it where you are today.
Back to the Lipton Championships live with Expo 2000.
One love then to Sampras. Eurosport's live coverage of the third of the quarterfinals of the Lipton Championships. Already through. Agassi and Birch still to come. Chang and Ivanisevic.
Law 15.
I think you're seeing on your screens confirmation of the fact that because Spadea beat Krajcek, denying Sampras the possible bonus points for beating a highly ranked player like Krajcek, Sampras now has to win the tournament to overtake Muster to go #1 next Monday. If he lost in the final now, he wouldn't have enough bonus points. Well, that encourages me through, because having played a comparatively poor volley, good to see him prepared to move forward on the next point.
Yes, it's obviously a tactic that he's decided, or his camp has decided to use against Sampras. In that match against Krajcek, he lost his first serve, lost a service game in the first set to Krajcek, and yet only lost 5 points on his serve in that first set. So apart from that one game, he only lost 1 point in 5 games.
30-15.
And let me say immediately, it wasn't because of bewildering serving. It was really just because of poor play by Krajcek and good play by this man behind the serve, on the ground strokes particularly.
You mentioned Spadea's camp, coached by his father, Vincent Sr., and he's also had a lot of help from Nick Saviano, who looks after the American junior program. Always takes their teams to places like Wimbledon, the French Open. How about that for a shot?
Game Spadea.
You think my backhand's good, mate? You watch me forehand.
1-0.
Yes, he's very much a product of the American school. Everybody seems to have had a hand in him. One of the first I remember working with him was Steve Krulowitz, who some will remember playing on the tour. Stan Smith's had worked with him. He's been to hit with Agassi.
15 love.
Nick Bollettieri saw to that, took him over to Vegas, where he played with Agassi a couple of years ago.
Stan Smith, who's now in charge of the men's side of the USTA's development program.
$30.
The Leaning Tower of Pasadena, he used to call Stan.
That's right. I think those pure white shoes of his still sell a ton.
Well, there's the first ace from Sampras.
He led the tour last year in aces, but I don't think he's going to lead it this year. I think a certain Mr. Ivanisevic has got an almighty lead on him already. He'll be on top.
$40-15.
Well, there wasn't much power on the Sampras shot. In fact, you could see it almost hesitated there, a little bit of backspin on it.
Game Sampras.
Second ace from Sampras.
Leads 2-1.
And he wins his second game.
Okay,
We're on serve.
Now it's time for a very special contest.
2-1
where
first set.
everyone has a chance to win. All you got to do is check under your seat.
Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveller. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same, and both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh somewhere, ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. And that has made all the difference.
Back to the Lipton Championships live with Expo 2000.
American domination of this event. And they're pretty dominating this year as well. 6 of them in the last 8. Oof, just long.
15 love.
Yes, I wonder if they have a last 8 club here. They try and get a 15 love. 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 15 love duplicate everything that goes on at the Grand Slam events. Don't quite manage it, but of course the Grand Slam, for people who got to the last 8 of the singles or the semi-final of the doubles, you become a member of the last 8 club. Have various perks.
Well, Sampras having a long look at that. The ball does leave a mark. And he's trying to find it, and the fact that he can't find it, I suspect, well, a little look at the line judge, a contemplative thought.
He's such an understated guy, Sampras. Not much arrogance in him at all, I'm pleased to say. But he may want to stamp some kind of authority on this man as soon as he can.
Like that.
40-15.
There have been some indications, perhaps even contrary to what we were saying earlier, from Sampras during this tournament, that of all the players, he looks pretty hungry and pretty keen to succeed.
Game Spadea. 2 games all.
Yes, nice little tale about Sampras at Indian Wells. Those of you who followed the tournament with us will remember he got a walkover when Alex Correia had to pull out with an ankle injury. And then later that day it rained. And whilst it was raining, Pete came into the press room because all sorts of people had asked to do interviews with him. And he sat there, I think it was about 2.5 hours, and it was simply a question of, right, that's your time, wheel the next one in here, folks. And he gave interview after interview.
Yes, that's terrific. Very difficult for the double-hander to get much strength unless he has time to get behind those. Only Sampras says that as a youngster, when he played much more of a baseline game, he was as intense as Michael Chang. But once he learned to play the serve volley game, he became much more laid back. It seems strange that as a puncher you become more laid back.
Well, the forehand really working sweetly now for Sampras. Something that let him down terribly when he played Paul Harhouse in the quarters at Indian Wells. And that's the first love game of the match. So game's going very comfortably with serve so far. 3-2.
Eddie, come on. Take me to the Hilton.
Back to the Lipton Championships live with Expo 2000.
2-3, first set. So this is how the top 8 seeds have got on. 4 of them still left. Must lost his first match. Becker didn't start with bronchitis. Courier we've seen lose to Birch. Enquist lost his first match. He lost it to a gentleman called Spadea.
Brilliant point that by Sampras, really taking a lot of pace off the backhand side, and what he's been looking to do in this match is eliminate errors on the backhand and use the big forehand to reap his reward, and I think that's very sensible play.
Just the first sign of raggedness from Spadea. Here's Sampras with 3 break points.
And what he hasn't been doing well at all this year, Sampras, is winning games on opponent's serve, just 19%, and that's incredibly bad for him. The average of most of the players I've had a look at has been around about 25%, so he's way below that.
Well, terrific counter-attack from Spadea, but I can't help feeling that Sampras should have been in at the net behind one of those big forehands.
Yes, just to give you an idea, Spadea has won 31% of his return games as opposed to Sampras' 19%.
It's funny though, isn't it, how sometimes you point to all these statistics. I remember saying before Courier's match with Birch that Courier had broken serve something like 48% of return games during the tournament, and then he couldn't break serve to save his life against Birch.
And then you said it was the exception that proved the rule.
2 break points saved, 1 remains. Yes, opened it up again, didn't he? And then unleashed the big forehand. So Sampras does break his record tonight, or this afternoon our time, 33%. 1 out of 3. 4-2.
Yes, he's playing pretty astutely here, really eliminating backhand errors. That's really been his Achilles heel.
Well, I think he's saying there that he was slightly put off by someone's mobile phone ringing. I certainly heard it. I suspect he did, but I think that's clutching at